Hi, everyone, and welcome to the EBA webinar podcast series. I'm really pleased to be joined today by Jennifer, Travis, and Casey. And today we're going to be talking about tips and tricks to grow your business with high performance practices. Um, Feel free to put questions in the chat or in the Q&A section. We'll answer those throughout today's conversation. So Jennifer, great to see you. And I will turn things over to you.
Hello, and thank you so much, Aaron. And thank you, Nancy, for the invite. We love what you guys are doing at EEBA. The privilege also to be here with Travis and Casey. Travis Brungart is the partner at Catalyst Construction, and Casey Murphy is the Senior Vice President of Business Incubation at Pearl Certification. You'll learn more about both those organizations, and I'll let them do a quick introduction. But like Aaron said, please give us questions throughout and we will address them as we receive them, or try to anyway. We want this to be as engaging and interactive as possible. So Travis, please do a quick intro.
Sure. My name is Travis Brungard. I'm in the Prairie Village, Kansas city, but that's just outside of Kansas City, so just Kansas City. Been a builder for 20-ish years, and that's at Catalyst Construction, a licensed master electrician, mechanical contractor, do a fair amount of trades education and stuff with my nonprofit. The Building Science Symposium series is ours. So that is what I do, very much involved in durable buildings, residential only. That's me.
Awesome. And while they're doing their intros, I also want to know a little bit about our audience. So please tell us where you are located and what you do. We want to be able to address your challenges and your opportunities as much as possible. So tell us if you're building, if you're a contractor, if you're an architect, if you're a consultant. Again, just let us know where you're calling in from and what you're doing. And Casey, over to you. A quick introduction, please.
Sure. So I am Casey Murphy with Pearl Certification out here in Maryland. Pearl is a national company. I've been in construction for about 30 years, used to run my own business, was a home performance contractor and a HERS rater, and have been in more of the policy space for the last 15 years. In Pearl, we make value visible, so we don't construct or renovate, but we partner with organizations to make sure that value is understood, and we'll talk a little bit more about that soon.
Awesome. And so if you guys in the audience have not heard of Travis and Casey before, you please look them up. They're both making big impacts on the industry, and you can learn a lot from them. So as you will today. But so we're here to talk about, as Aaron said, the headline here is to talk about high performance. But I think if I had to guess, every single one of us has a different definition of what high performance means. So starting with you, Casey, what is your definition of high performance?
So I like breaking it down. So let's talk about performance first. And performance is kind of the capabilities of a product to meet certain characteristics. And I'd like to think first and foremost that a home should perform for the family's occupants. And that means deliver comfort, deliver indoor air quality, deliver health, protection from the environment, from environmental, rain, things of that sort, and be affordable to operate. So a component of a high performing home is meeting the needs of the family, but then also we really have to look at high performing homes in terms of what society thinks about a home. So managing the electrical grid, carbon reduction, making sure 20% of our energy goes into residential buildings. And so a high performing home should help society as well meet societal needs, but it really starts with the family first and foremost.
Awesome. So you were talking about how a home can protect you, while I'm thinking about our wonderful hosts, Aaron and Nancy, are under a tornado watch right now. So, this year alone, we've seen more tornadoes than we have in the last 2 or 3 decades. I read this a couple weeks ago, so I don't remember the exact numbers, but there are more and more challenges all the time. Casey, one thing that I kind of want you to tuck in the back of your brain is that we are talking to probably mostly small business owners or people who are part of small businesses. And what you just said about providing for the homeowners takes, you know, some massive knowledge base, a very comprehensive knowledge base, and learning so many different things about so many different things. So how can a small business owner like fit that into what they're doing? So just tuck that in the back of your brain. I want to be able to address that a little bit because, you know, I think they have to have resources at their fingertips, and we can talk about what are some of the resources that you think are the best, the most accessible, easiest to apply. So Travis, back to you and your definition of high performance.
Well, this is fun because it's really two definitions that I work from. There's the definition that I work from when I'm speaking with potential clients, people who want us to build or renovate a home for them. And generally speaking, they're not experts in our industry. So when I speak with them about a high performance home, I do touch on a lot of what Casey led with regard to comfort and efficiency. But generally speaking, especially in my market, which is very price competitive, where energy is very inexpensive, it tends to become a conversation of, well, this is what the minimum standard building code is, and we are exceeding that by wide margins, and here's how we do it. And that's how I talk about high performance with them. I talk about, you know, extreme levels of air tightness that provide for a low blower door score so that we can have, you know, limited allergens in their homes, and keeping the heated air inside, keep the hot side hot and the cold side cold, if you're old enough to get that reference. But there's a fair amount more that I want to go into if the client is enthusiastic. And that gets us into what I would consider big philosophical high performance, which is, I think, more of what Casey got into, where we really can talk about, you know, not just the initial or upfront costs and outcomes, but the life cycle of the way that we utilize our natural resources and what we're leaving for our children to unpack, and what's going to end up in our water. Like, there's a lot more to a high performance building than the initial outcome of these people are safe in their secure home that's very comfortable and is easy to maintain. We spend a ton of time talking about a ton of time talking about how sustainability is really a function of durability. And so detailing simple things like flashings is probably more important than using the most expensive product on the market. Things like that really speak to the clients that we address day to day, because most people have had to, you know, fix some wood rot or had to deal with carpenter bees or carpenter ants, much worse, things that could have been avoided if. And so high performance is about exceeding what is the minimum standard of what is around you, and hopefully being compelled to do as much as you possibly can to provide the best outcome for your clients, and hopefully for several generations, because we look at a much longer timeline now than the housing producers of the 70s and 80s and 90s even.
Yeah, it's so interesting that you brought that up, because I had a conversation with Dave King today, an interview on LinkedIn Live. And that was one of his main points, is that durability is, Dave King's the executive director of the Home Improvement Research Institute. And he was talking about durability, and that's the focus of manufacturers, is making durable products, which is, so anyway, that's so interesting that you brought that up. Okay, so what I like to do is warm us up. So if you want to stretch while you're seated, or even stand up and down a little bit, anybody in the audience, everybody here. So we're going to do a speed round, which means that you only answer with one word or one phrase. You know, these are short, quick answers. It's supposed to be very to the point. And anybody in the audience who wants to put their answer in the chat as well, I invite that. But we'll just go Travis and Casey each time. And starting with the first question in the speed round, true or false? There's way too much demand for high efficiency housing. People just cannot get enough.
Oh, there's no buzzer? False. False.
False.
Exactly, false. There's not enough education and awareness about what that even means. Yeah.
Yeah, right. What one word describes what is needed to reach the nation's energy efficiency goals?
Commitment.
Demand, specifically consumer demand.
I love that. Good answers, you guys. Which stakeholder in the housing resiliency ecosystem will have the most impact on the future of more efficient homes?
I want to say the builder. As a builder, I really want to say it's the builder because the amount of detail that we put in, but I can't do a long answer. Sorry.
I'm going to say the consumer, because once the consumer understands the difference between a good builder and a bad builder, that's when transformation happens.
Yeah. So, and Aaron's putting in homeowner. So, what will be the biggest challenge in the next year? Education, labor, lack of innovation, regulation, policy. What do you think, Travis?
Labor, absolutely labor. We're dying in the skills gap over here. We need people like no other.
Yeah, I think I have to agree with Travis. I was going to say market confusion, especially with the rollout of IRA and a bunch of other policies. But yeah, Travis, I might have to concur with you.
Election. In one word. How would you relate the words energy and housing, Travis?
For me, efficient. I have to say that an awful lot. So that's the immediate word that dropped in there for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I can't really say it in one word, but they're really intertwined. 20% of our nation's energy is used in housing. Yeah, you can't separate them.
Yeah. Yeah. Integrated totally. So, good job on the speed round, you guys. I always have to I have to buzz somebody out. And thank you, Aaron, for participating. And Aaron concurs on the labor aspect. And I don't, labor, I just did write, or I just published a story and I did look up the construction labor index, I think, and there are 400,000 open jobs right now, which is actually lower than it was. And it's dropping throughout the year. So hopefully we are filling those jobs or finding more efficient ways to do the work so that we don't have as many open positions. So
It's an
okay.
improving condition. I'm sorry to interrupt you. But it is
No.
an improving condition, but I think it's important for people to realize, especially for people in my position that have the opportunity to potentially bring someone on and keep them on. That is going to be the new challenge. We can celebrate briefly that we have invited people to return to the trades and that there is a level of interest and people are seeing that opportunity. But we do a really hard job. It's dangerous. It's not necessarily easy physically. And so we now have to turn our eyes to how can we keep these people engaged once they see, oh yeah, this is cool. I love doing it. It's very satisfying. But we still have to compete with the open marketplace that offers better benefits package, a future with a retirement, even a career path that allows ascension in positions that will be secure long term. And that is going to be the thing that we've got to start talking about now so that we don't lose all these people that we finally got excited about the trades. I'm really proud that we did a good thing, but we've got to do the next thing too. It's very
Yeah.
important. I'm sorry to interrupt.
I'm so glad you did, because that's a really important thing. We're trying hard to create some demand and so it's not even demand, it's some sex appeal to the industry and to have some sort of attractiveness. But that, just to your point about durability, it has to be durable, it has to be sustainable. People cannot come and then ditch it after 6 months. So what we're seeing is that we're going to have a washout of all this legacy knowledge. All these people are retiring out of the industry and it's gone. It's just literally gone. Whether that's a good or bad thing, I don't know yet, but that we need people who are sustainable and who can learn about the industry, because our industry is very complex, to our point that Casey was making. Go ahead, Casey.
Yeah, I was going to piggyback a little bit because, I used to be a framer way back when, and I simply didn't understand the importance of my work and how it impacted the home. I mean, this was Maryland in late 1990s, and I didn't understand air sealing and draft stopping and things of that sort. I think once the trades start to understand the importance of their work on families and on the larger, societal, there's a pride in workpersonship
Yeah.
and craft, and it's not building trade is a noble pursuit when you're doing it well and truly delivering high performing homes to the homeowners who live in them. And that connection, I think, is lacking right now.
Yeah.
But I think we could build on that.
I think you're totally right. Sorry about that. So Casey, you talked about how energy efficiency can equate to higher home value when we were talking about before. And so what does that mean? And can you quantify it in any capacity? And sorry to layer on the question, and then how do you communicate that to a homeowner?
Sure. So, I mean, let's start with the problem statement, and that is a lot of the quality that goes into a high performing home is simply not captured, not documented. People don't understand the benefits that they would receive living in a high performing home. We kind of suffer from a tyranny of low expectations. Homes just behave this way. The upstairs is always hotter in the in the summer. The basement's always musty, and things of that sort. So it does begin with that homeowner education and awareness, but it's also capturing the value of what the either remodeler or the builder is putting into the home and making sure that that is valuable and visible. We actually did a little survey of 1,200 homes that went through the NJBS Green Certification Program and looked at how many of them were resold. These were great homes, low HERS indexes, they were certified green. And we looked in the MLS of how those homes were differentiating from other homes that were being resold. And we found that there was virtually zero mention at all that these homes were built to a higher standard. And so we're not communicating, we're not capturing that value. And so what Pearl is doing is we're trying to capture that value and translate it to homeowners in terms of the benefits that they would receive living in this home, to real estate agents so they can appropriately market the homes as being high performing. And we also complete the Appraisal Institute's Green and Energy Efficiency Addendum on every home. So we've completed about 215,000 of these addendas so far to make sure that the value of the home's high performing features are made visible. And so what we've found is that, we've had a couple appraiser-led studies. When the homes are properly marketed, they sell for about 5% more than homes that are not certified. And in our mind, that is what creates market transformation. Homeowners are always viewing their home as their most important nest egg. It is where family wealth creation kind of begins and grows. And we have seen paradigm shifts in different trends, whether or not it's open floor plans, it's ensuite bathrooms, it's granite countertops. We can transform the behaviors, the consumer behaviors, and it's tied to home equity. And so if we can actually communicate the value of like all the great work that Travis is doing or that EBA builders are doing, if people understand that and are willing to pay more for it, then we get this transformative cycle where it creates more demand, which creates more supply. And the key is really making sure that added value is translated into home equity.
Well, yeah, I mean, to your point, I shared an article this morning that was talking about exactly that, which means that banks are starting to understand the value of home improvements or home efficiency, because they're like, if the owner is saving X, Y, and Z on energy on a monthly basis, then they can then use that money for the mortgage payment. And if they're not getting damaged by the next tornado that blows through Minneapolis, not that that's on the back of my mind, but then they don't have to spend all that extra money. So anyway, so it is, banks are going to start probably enforcing some of these things, which will then change the market. Travis,
Yes.
can you talk about, I know you're in Kansas, Kansas City, Kansas, which is climate zone 4-5 area, that's your expertise. Can you talk about how climate zones make a difference in building science and how you practice that for climate zone 4?
I can. I really enjoy this topic actually, so I thank you for the tee up. The importance of understanding your climate zone can't be overstated. There's obviously some really helpful tables in your IRC if you're building residential buildings, or commercial obviously is a similar code. But the tables are there for your convenience because there's been a lot of research done to know what the best performing assemblies will be and how to stay away from risk. That's essentially what a builder's job is, right? To alleviate risk. We spend a lot of time talking about the great things that we can do and these beautiful finishes, but at the end of the day, it's what Casey said right at the beginning. It's about security. It's about comfort from the elements. It's safety, and that's what the code is based on. So we get ourselves into trouble the less energy we move through a system. And I don't want to take this down a too deep a dive because I'll lose a lot of people. But the thing that I think is most important to understand about our advancing building codes, specifically with regard to insulation, which seems to be the one that gets the most attention, I think because it's the easiest to understand, frankly. You can put a score on it and people understand that, 15 is less than 23 and 23 is less than 30 and right on up the chain. It's very easy to understand insulation. Most people have seen the Pink Panther commercials in their youth with the cotton candy looking insulation. So it's very easy to wrap your mind around that. When we talk about building in one climate zone versus the other, more insulation is required, the more heat loss you would have to the exterior. So as we move northern in our climate zones, like I'm in 4, but north of me in Nebraska is 5. My friend Randy Williams is up in Minnesota. He's got climate zone 7 to deal with. That's getting colder and colder and colder. And what happens is you add insulation so that you don't lose as much heat to the exterior during these cold times. But in sealing things up, and this goes back to the mold crisis of the 70s, the sick building syndrome, we essentially realized that great, we can save energy by insulating these cavities and making our houses into coolers to keep energy in and not have that loss to the exterior. But what we didn't think too much about was what that effect would be regarding indoor air quality, the water vapor that we exfiltrate, breathing out, inhaling, taking showers, cooking pasta, all that indoor humidity becomes trapped when it can't move through a system with excessive drying, air leakage. In old drafty homes in my market that were built in the early 1900s, you can have a very safe building that has multiple water leaks, numerous air leaks all over, because there's so much energy moving through that system, it's constantly drying it out such that mold can't grow. Whereas if you have a single piece of fiberglass bat in a leaky stud bay next to a window that has a flashing that's not detailed properly, you might have a very mild year and produce more mold than this leaky house does all over in its cavities, because we're no longer drying. If we can produce a condition of retaining the energy through insulation and good air sealing practices, then we can mitigate some of that risk. But you have to understand how to do that safely. Building Science Corporation's done a great job of sharing their white papers on this topic. Tremendous resource. Obviously, EVA's done a tremendous amount as well. But the things that we want to reference have a lot to do with the ratio of how much insulation you need. Ideally, under the new code, we talk about moving that insulation to the exterior, because just like you don't want to eat your jacket, you want to wear your jacket, as Joe Steebrook says. The best outcome that you can get is drying to the interior in the hot, humid summer for me here in climate zone 4, and drying to the exterior in the cold winter. Because if I move the energy the wrong way, that's where I get condensation. And if we trap that moisture, then we support mold growth. We reduce our indoor air quality. And so it is incredibly important to understand what climate zone you're in and respect that ratio of in to out as you meet these new insulation requirements with the 2021 Energy Code.
Yeah, well said. And I think more and more what I hear from experts like you guys is that it's moisture control. And yeah, and how that is impacting the structure from the inside and the outside. So like I said, well said. And the resources too, EVA, of course, is a great resource, but then if we could continue to offer the resources and maybe put them in the chat, that'd be great too. Casey, you said that when we had our prep call that net zero is not the goal. So why not? And what is the goal?
So it gets back to your first question in terms of, what is performance? So net zero is a goal, but it's not a goal if the house isn't durable. It's not a goal if the house makes the occupants sick. In fact, what do we even mean by net zero? Are we talking net zero water? Are we talking net zero energy? Are we talking about net zero emissions, operational energy? Are we talking net zero in terms of embedded carbon? I think that for society, decarbonization of our housing sector is incredibly important. It is a very significant goal, as is having resilient homes that protect occupants and provide passive resiliency and active resiliency in the case of, climate disasters, things of that sort. So I think that it is not the end goal. It is simply a key performance indicator for how a home should perform. I will kind of do a call out to the White House and the DOE. They recently released a definition of what a zero emissions home is. Pearl was actually one of the organizations that kind of celebrated that. I think it offers great clarity so that we can develop certification schemas to document that and be able to really measure a home's operational emissions over time. So I love net zero, all the different flavors of net zero. I think it is a really important goal, but it's not the goal. The goal in my mind is protecting the family who live in that home.
Yeah, so I want to layer onto that, and Travis, maybe you were going to as well, but it seems to me that maybe some of the local or governing bodies are targeting that as their goal, whether or not, just like you said, I really appreciate what you're saying there and how that is just part of an overall, what overall you can achieve with a design, right, or construction. So for instance, again, I'm going to go back to a story that I shared this morning. The Boston Planning and Development Agency just passed a requirement that all new construction would be zero carbon. Now it is more targeted at multifamily, so it's above however many units, but that's a pretty aggressive target for all new construction. So I guess maybe net zero is easy for them to target, and saying all the things that you said it's more difficult, right? But how do we as an industry approach that, and how can we think together collaboratively on what the right target should be?
And is that for me or for Travis?
Both of you. I want you both to answer at the same time. Go.
How about if you proceed, Casey, and I'll pick up the rear?
Yeah, well, on the one hand, I don't think we can let the perfect be the enemy of the good. So it's important for us to be able to get to these end goals, but have a roadmap for how we can get there, and making sure that we're aligning it with all the other kind of important priorities that go into building multifamily homes, single family homes, maintaining those homes as well. So you do get into diminishing marginal returns as well. And sometimes we focus so much on getting that remaining diminishing marginal return when we really should be dedicating more resources to where there's more impact for a lot less cost.
Yeah.
So it really, I guess, gets into the nuances of a specific policy or regulation. But I think this is not an easy way to basically modernize the nation's building stock. And it's going to take a lot of creative and innovative solutions, and making sure that different market actors have aligned incentives to work towards that same goal.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said. Yeah.
I think it's definitely a yes and approach. I think, and I talk about this a lot when we talk about other programs, specifically Passive House, other building standards, LEED. They have a real important role. Living Building Challenge is the one that I love to reference, because it's almost out of reach for everyone. It's an incredibly difficult building standard. The red list of materials that you can't use in a Living Building Challenge house is almost everything that I put in my houses. And I love my family. I want them to have healthy, happy lives. I care about all my clients. I don't ever want a negative outcome for anyone. I don't think any builder goes out trying to do that. But the red list of materials that have potential negative outcomes that are excluded from Living Building Challenge make it seem impossible to build a home. And that's, to Casey's point, don't let perfect be the enemy of good. I still think there's incredible value in having a program like that, in the same way that it was valuable to send a man to the moon. We didn't necessarily figure out that it was extremely useful to be on the moon and look at all the great things we can do here on the moon, but we did get, this, my cell phone works because of things that we learned trying to figure out how to go to the moon. When we do living building challenge, when we do net zero, when we do passive house, we don't necessarily want that to be the end all be all goal. Like Casey said, that's not the point. The point is having these different programs does allow normalization of behavior across the industry. Tradespeople become familiarized with the importance of air sealing, which is incredibly important. You can't really step into any of these programs without having to pick up some new tools in your quiver.
Yeah.
Metaphorically, not, I'm sure there are some new tools for fancy things, but that's not what we're talking about here. I'm saying that the importance of these programs is, in my view, almost on an inspirational level, where we get new ideas and find new ways to solve problems, and we normalize the importance of better building practices. I'm a huge advocate of Pretty Good House. If anyone's heard of that, it's a book that was released a couple years ago. Okay, so Pretty Good House, it's a non-standard building standard. My colleagues at BS and Beer Show, Mike Maines and Emily Mottram and their friend Dan Colbert, wrote that book to help explain this very topic. It's so important that when we look at our housing stock, we don't stop at, well, if I check this box, I did a good job. It's the same thing with the building code. There's no reality in that statement. It's dishonest. If we look at it less as a checklist and more as a principled approach by which you do the very best that you can before it stops making financial sense and makes it out of reach for people, then you've done a great job. Pretty Good House. Well done.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I did put a couple links in the chat if anybody was following along with Travis. So just the Living Building Challenge link, and then also the Pretty Good House. I got to see them present at a conference last October, which was really cool. So it's a good reference. And Travis, you just hit on quite a few different programs. But what does your firm Catalyst practice as the best way to do an energy assessment?
Well, we do a few different things. Certainly when we're on the front end of a project, when we haven't landed the project yet, so to speak, especially on a renovation, we like to offer, would it be okay if we set up our blower door? If we're going to move forward with this project, we would love to know how the house is performing now so that we can make sure we can enhance that and improve it. And it might be a useful baseline. We can see, maybe walking through the house with the client, that we can find their pressure points. Like, oh yeah, that room's never been comfortable. Well, I wonder why that would be. We've got the blower door. It's 10 minutes to set it up. Let's just see. I'll do a quick calculation and we can figure out how much your leakage is. But while we're doing that, let's walk around and you can, watch the client's eyes light up when you can identify what they've been experiencing in moments without living in their house. You can walk by that bedroom and feel the air blowing across your ankles. You're like, oh, well, there's a window open in there, and you open the window or the door to the bedroom. There is no window open. It's just that leaky. And you walk over to the window and you can say, oh, do you see how the hair on my arm or the back of my fingers is where it's most sensitive? I'll say, do you see how this is exactly where that discomfort is coming from? Because we've depressurized your house and we're bringing the outdoor air in at a higher velocity than what it normally would be. So you can experience this, and I'll show them on the thermal imager. So you can really capture their imagination and help them understand how their house works and show them their deficiencies, so that when you do offer them, hey, this is an expensive building package that we're trying to offer you to solve these comfort issues and improve your home. You brought us here to do a primary suite addition, but while we're here, if we're going to do the siding, let's go ahead and seal all your windows up, or let's replace the ones that are really leaking badly with a better product that's going to give your family the comfort and durability that honestly you deserve. It's really what you should be thinking about most, more so than a fancy appliance package or whatnot. So that's really the starting point in order to get our projects through certifications. Certainly for programs like Energy Star, and even, obviously we're selling our HERS ratings as part of what we offer. Every contract for a new home I write says that we will deliver an air leakage rate of less than 1 air change per hour at 50 pascals. That is part of our HERS rating. That's part of an energy analysis. When we begin the job, we're telling our mechanical design team often Energy Vanguard. Allison Bales will tell you, your design's only as good as the people who will install it to that. So running energy models and providing manuals, JD&S for your equipment selection, your ductwork for your HVAC, it's great to do those things. But if you send it to a tradesperson who throws it in the bed of their truck and grabs their chainsaw to cut holes in the roof, it's not a very useful model at all. So those are the strategies that we have done. We educate the homeowners at every chance that we get. We educate our tradespeople and make them our partners, not our lackeys. Those are the people that are basically making success or breaking success for us. So we share that same information with them and say, look, what a good thing we can do here. If we follow this plan and we do it this way, we can really make a difference with this house. And that takes it from the homeowner to the tradesperson all the way to the energy rater and on to the next owner.
Right. I love that. And I mean, it is something that if you haven't done it yet, but if you're forced to doing it the first time, then it is something that you can repeat. So I think that there's a lot of what you don't know happening in the industry right now. And like contractors, if they haven't tried to do something, but if the homeowner demands it, then it's a pull through. So to your point, and you kind of answered both of these questions that I'm going to ask next, but and maybe we can move through these really quick because I know we have still a lot to get through. But what do both of you see as the key motivators for homeowners, and how do you appeal to that? So Casey, where's the demand?
Well, I think like what Travis just said, if we educate homeowners, you don't have to sell them. You educate them on the benefits, and those benefits sell themselves. I mean, Travis, what you are doing is amazing. And that's exactly what we would want. Like, it is to be able to educate the homeowner, help them make the right choice. At the same point in time, you are elevating yourself against your competition who's not having that conversation with the homeowner. I'm sure you're not the cheapest, business, and you shouldn't be, because your attention, your detail, the quality, the value you're delivering is so important. So to get to your question, Jennifer, it's really educating that homeowner on the benefits, seeing what is important for them. Listening to their concerns. Is it the comfort? Maybe they really want to get to net zero. Maybe their house is a statement of who they are as a person. They really want to get to net zero. Then deliver that value to them, but understand the customer needs and give them appropriate education and options to meet those needs.
A lot of times now there's still a premium associated with going to those products or going to sustainable solutions. Is there a way that you overcome that as a barrier that you can share?
Oh, I'm sorry. Was that to me or to Travis?
Whoever wants to answer it. It's to everyone. Travis, what do you think?
I want you to restate the question because I don't think I grasped it.
So a lot of times there's a premium involved with building better. So
Yes.
like if you are showing a homeowner, I want to do this, but it's 20% above what, the typical renovation. How are you getting over that? Like, I would say a lot of people are not sold on that. Do you have to go through the energy savings that they'll have and show them ROI? Well, if you do this upgrade, it'll pay back in 14 months because of your energy savings. How do you approach it?
Yeah, we do have those conversations on very big ticket items like HVAC equipment and windows. Absolutely. Because they're a large enough cost impact that you really do have to justify it out for them. And that's where programs like the 45L have really been helpful, because I can point to, hey, yes, it's more, but also you're going to get something back right away. And then as soon as that credit has been issued back to you, you're going to immediately start to notice, oh, and I'm also being paid back every month. So you can build that savings back in pretty rapidly on those big ticket items. It's a little bit tougher on things like, we use $9 caulking instead of $6 caulking, and we pay a $30 an hour guy to put it on instead of a $12 an hour guy. Those are really hard to explain, and we generally don't talk about that with clients. What we spend our time focused on is offering the education like we talked about, and then continuing that line through. Like once they understand the basics of it, you can sort of build on that with them to where they understand that payback period isn't just financial, it's in comfort. Like you're really tying in a lot more things than just temperature, which is what people usually associate with HVAC and windows. What we're really talking about with most of those clients that are in that mid to high end market that are willing to pay for better stuff, frankly, are things like quiet. Like that's an incredible benefit that people never talk about with triple glazed windows that they always should talk about because it is substantially different. We do a great job of insulating our walls, and the energy code's making sure that everyone's going to have to come up to at least a more substantial amount of accidental sound attenuation through their thermal control layer. But what we don't talk about is, well, gosh, if we do a better job with our windows, not just in sealing them, but actually adding an additional vacuum broken section, we're going to reduce what you hear outside by this margin. And while that's not necessarily going to help them live longer, it might help them to stay in the house and work from home and reduce the amount of time that they open their windows, which frankly is not usually the best thing for a house. As we have different seasons and temperature changes and moisture and humidity change, it's actually really good for the house to stay closed up and manage the air through the ERV and other things that we can talk about. But the idea of talking about only first costs is the worst thing you can do. You always have to bundle them together. You always have to talk about comfort, efficiency, and the way that we actually experience our homes has a lot more to do with the aspects of comfort that aren't just the temperature on your skin that you feel. It really is, feeling radiant heat versus, latent heat. These are really high level, high school physics concepts, but most people don't think about them until you educate them. And as soon as you do, if you get that client that is interested in that next level performance, boy, you got them. They're going to be sending you email all weekend about, well, I read about this and I saw this, and can you get this for me? What's it going to take to get that that 2-ton down to a 1.5? Because our startup on it, it's going to only cycle this many times. I mean, they're all in once you get them to understand what they're up against.
And
I
was just going to say, completely agree with what Travis said. I would say Pearl's unique spin on it is the additional component is equity in the home. So you're going to get payback over time with reduced energy bill. You're going to get tons of non-energy benefits. I mean, what's the payback of, a brand new kitchen or things of that sort? People are willing to pay for the non-energy benefits as well. But we also want to make sure that that improvement is well documented and captured and communicated at the appropriate time for additional home equity. So a lot of those benefits that Travis was talking about, when we certify a project or a home or an improvement, we're creating home tour cards for the listing agent if that house is sold. That talks exactly to what Travis was talking about, because that listing agent isn't going to be able to kind of plug into Travis's brain and communicate this. And so we have these, home tour cards, social media content. We populate it in the AI denim, so that value persists. If, Travis does a 1,000 square foot addition on a home, I want that home's equity to be more than a 1,000 square foot addition done by, someone who's just learned how to, put an addition on the home, and make sure that that value is well communicated, really for the lifetime of the home.
Yeah. And so it is more and more so the homeowners that you're kind of selling, and Travis, you're talking about somebody having that kind of aha moment and then bombarding you with information.
Yeah.
But have you been able to go and create a case study? Like, we did this retrofit or renovation, and then the homeowner was able to save X, Y, and Z. Do you have anything that would be case study that you share with prospects and leads, and how did you put that together? I'd love to hear about that and using it as a marketing asset.
Sure. Yeah, we have stories to tell. I don't have, third-party verified, double-blind controlled studies that I can, show a pamphlet and hand off and have someone go, oh, okay, well, so-and-so said 9 out of 10 dentists. Okay, I guess it's real. What I do have is people that we've done work for again and again, that we've returned to their homes because we have performed again and again what was asked and then exceeded that. Specifically, I'm thinking of a project we did an addition for a family of friends of ours from church that said, we really just need a big open space on the back of the house where we could have all of our friends over for dinner. And, it ended up becoming a full full width of the home addition, but just a large space and not a very complex renovation in that regard. But vaulted ceilings, and there was, we're gonna have to spray foam this, and there was some building science to it. But in that conversation, I said, we're going to get out the blower door. I did that. We were, I want to say 9.76 ACH 50, which is not a great score. It would not pass code in any state that's enforcing anything legitimate. 5 is the minimum in some areas. 3 air changes is the minimum in most areas that we're facing now. And again, I said our minimum standard is 1 air change per hour. And just to make sure everyone on the call understands, when we talk about an air change each hour, we're talking about the entire volume, every bit of air in your home being exhausted and replaced. And it's how many times per hour if there was a 20-mile-an-hour wind on every surface of the house. So that's obviously an unrealistic condition. You don't have a 20-mile-an-hour wind on all the surfaces. However, we had to agree on a minimum, or excuse me, had to agree on a common standard, and that's what the fan could produce. So that's what they made the standard. So replacing all of the air that you heated and cooled 9 times in an hour, almost 10, is not great, especially in a climate where we drop below 0 and we exceed 100 degrees. We'll be 96 degrees this time tomorrow. So you don't want to do that, especially with the levels of high humidity we deal with here. It's a recipe for mold and discomfort and all sorts of problems. So we ran the blower door, and in the conversation with the homeowner about this addition, we said, well, we're going to be adding all this new siding. It will not match the existing siding. Are you open to replacing the siding so that we can make this all match? When we do that, we can apply a self-adhered WRB, a weather-resistant barrier. And if it's a self-adhered, it does a really good job of covering the gaps in your skip sheathing that was the old base for your siding. And I think we can really improve your air tightness even without replacing all the old leaky windows. And they said, yeah, I think that would be great. They were willing to pay for the siding. We took a little bit of a bath on the WRB because it's kind of expensive for the peel and stick, but it was worth it because at the end of the job, where we really only affected an addition on the back side of the house, and it's a Cape Cod, so the dormers, the leakiest roof you could ever have in terms of air leakage. The second floor design is terrible for energy efficiency. We brought that score down to a 5.2, so almost half, just in this one basic renovation thing that you would do on a house for aesthetic reasons in any market. People change their siding out all the time. Don't want to paint it, replace it. Well, there's a golden opportunity. And when you show people that if you're surgical and precise about where you put the effort to improve things, you can make a massive improvement for really not that much more money. It's very easy to get them on board. And that's been the most frequently told story regarding that aspect.
I love that. And, and I think that for our audience and me as a consumer, you guys have to present that because the homeowner is not going to ask for it. So I would just encourage you to be smart when you go into a home. Yeah. And then, so we have touched on so many different programs and resources and everything. Casey, you are across all the different certificate programs, and they have different meanings for the consumer. They have different meanings for the builder, like DOE Zero Energy Ready and EPA Indoor Air Plus and LEED and FIAS and Energy Star. So what do each one of them mean, and how do you interpret the meaning for the consumer?
So primarily, we want to provide that objective information and education to the consumer and to builders. Each one of these programs, I would argue, creates a ton of value in different ways. And yet it's awfully confusing as a non-expert to understand the difference between those programs. So the first thing that we want to do is just provide objective information about what the program is and the benefits that a homeowner would accrue if you bought a home that was built under one of these standards. The second thing we want to do is make sure that that value, again, kind of persists over time. There are 4 million HERS rated homes out there. There are 2.5 million Energy Star certified homes out there. What we have seen is that nobody remembers that after the home is built. We have new home buyers moving into an Energy Star certified home that don't know it is an Energy Star certified home because the builder's just doing it for the tax credits, let's say. And so we want to make sure that that information persists and again is made valuable if that home is resold as well. So I love all of those programs. I would say every builder should have their home third-party tested. Most common is a HERS rater doing a HERS score. I would argue every builder should at least build to Energy Star certified homes, ideally zero energy ready if it makes sense for them and their clients. And they can, build upon that. But really, it's going to depend upon what the builder can do, what the builder's customer segments are demanding, and we want to make sure that that information is just understood by the marketplace and understood by appraisers. We work with appraisers a lot. We work with real estate agents, and so we're translating this really technical energy efficiency world that even energy experts don't really understand. We're trying to simplify the message and make sure the real estate community understands what it means so they can appropriately talk about it and value it when they're going through their specific process, whether or not it, again, is a real estate agent, an appraiser, a lender, an underwriter, things of that sort.
Yeah, you're right. They all have great value. So it's just understanding where and how to use that. So Aaron is actually putting in some links to webinars and podcasts that are additional information for our audience. And then we have a question from the audience, and the question from Claire, thank you, Claire, is what is the most effective way to grow your market in high performance building business in a state where it is not very common? So, and she asked social media, and actually, so social media may be one of their answers, but you all should follow Catalyst on Instagram because there's great content there too. So how should she grow market?
It's a very slow grind. So in my experience, and I will say again, energy is very inexpensive here in the Kansas City market. It's cheap to have a crummy performing house. And so you will not be motivated by savings. Typically, you're going to want to sell with the idea of comfort. I think most clients that we talk to, as far as like building demand, I guess was the real question there. Building that demand is a very long and slow process. And the way that we have been successful with it, we started by just sneaking it in. We would use Rockwell R15 bats in a wall instead of the competitors' fiberglass R13 bat. And we didn't talk about it other than it was in our proposal as a line item, like this is what we're doing. But we didn't offer it as an upgrade, because if you offer these things as upgrades, then the client looks at it and goes, there's my opportunity to save. I want the granite countertop and I don't care about the insulation. Let's take out the energy efficiency and then we'll get the thing that we want. So what we had to do, or what we did, I guess, successfully, there might have been other options. What we chose to do and succeeded with was presenting our best package to the client holistically. Say, you know what, there's a lot of things on the project that you're going to be in charge of. We want you to pick the tile that you want and the paint colors, but we want to make sure you understand that we're standing behind this product. And for that to happen, we have to be in control of the control layers, the water management, the air control. We have to pick the things that you're not going to see, and we have to detail them to our standard. And we're not really going to negotiate on, hey, can we take the zip out and use this? Or can we X, Y, or Z? We have a minimum standard that we're willing to warranty. Windows are the easiest one for me to say, hey, I'm not going to put in that box store window because I know it leaks. But I know from putting in 75 of these last year and 150 the year before that this one doesn't leak. And that's the one I want to put in, is the one that's going to keep you safe and comfortable. The other thing that you can do, you can tug the heartstrings a little bit. I like to tell a story. I love talking about people. I always get a little weepy. I like to talk about people's kids coming home for the holidays. And when you think about a family celebrating their special moments together in a home, it's very easy to get someone's ideas wrapped around wanting people to value that house. And that's where we get into that durability conversation, where this isn't a throwaway. We're not here to do this to make it look good enough to sell in 7 years. We're doing this as a responsibility to you, our client, but also to the built environment at large. This is a house for hundreds of years, not for your use for a few. So we must do better, and this is how we get there. These are the things that we do. I like to spin our stories that way. And the last thing is to, attack the pressure points. You got to attack the pressure points. Most people don't want to do any sort of maintenance to their house anymore. Nobody likes to repaint. No one wants to scrape paint and repaint. Nobody wants to go out and recaulk. I can guarantee you that nobody enjoys dusting and vacuuming up bugs. And if you talk to a family that has kids about allergies, you have them. They're all in. If you talk to a family that is very fastidious about how frequently they dust their bookshelves now versus after living in a home that has proper air control and proper ventilation, with the filtration levels you get with that, you've got them. They're all in. It's very easy to get those people on board, but it takes a long time of educating clients. One of our best salespeople in our market is a client that didn't hire us. They tell everyone they wish that they would have hired us because their outcome was not what we offered. And they see us working next door and across the street, and they go, and they're telling all their friends. So you have to stay, loyal to the ideal and not back off and not value engineer out the things that are really important to the long-term benefit of the occupants of that home.
Yeah, well said. So Karen, thank you. Great comment. And Claire says, yes, thank you. So we're going to wrap up. Final lightning round. Again, same rules. We'll just one word or one phrase answer. And then, and thank you to the audience for joining us and sticking with us. And again, you guys should respond as well. Name one thing about energy efficiency that you haven't figured out yet that you're dying to understand better. Casey.
Electrical integration of entire home systems so that homes become virtual power plants.
Oh, nice.
I'm with you. The solar wire, I'm a master electrician. I have not mastered battery storage, and I want to make sure that renewables are part of our packages going forward. I'm with you. And
Aaron says microgrids. Nice. With a nod to Travis's group, which is BS and beer. So which BS stands for building science. Don't think that I'm trying to. So with a nod to that group, what is your favorite beer?
I love an Anger, only because I can't get brand. I got to visit the Netherlands years ago, and there's a very old brewery there called Brand, and I've never been able to find it in the States. So here I get Anger. It has sort of a banana finish. It's very good.
Interesting. Casey.
I'm going to say the one in my hand, not like literally right now, but
that's much better answer.
Just like wine, it depends on where you're at, what you're experiencing. So, yep, there's several I like.
I love that answer. Okay, last one. One thing that you would ask the audience, one call to action. Casey?
Who is your customer and how can you deliver value for them?
How much more time do you need to fix it than to do it right the first time?
Okay, you guys, Travis and Casey, thank you so much for being part of this. And Nancy and Aaron, thank you so much for letting us chat today. I just put in Catalyst Built's Instagram handle, and so you guys have that now, and I'm going to drop in Pearl certification.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for just an awesome conversation and all the passion that each of you brings. And Travis, I loved hearing your take as a contractor down in the Kansas City market on what you're doing to bring high performance homes to your market. So thank you all so very much. My call to action is please join us at the EBA Summit in Salt Lake City, October 1st, 2nd, and 3rd this fall. Yeah. And no tornadoes yet here, I'm happy to report, but we're under the watch.
Yay!
So, stay safe.
Awesome. Stay safe. Thank you, everybody.
Will do. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for having us. Take care.
Thank you.